Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Changing Room podcast. I'm your host, Arbella Kappas, and thanks for being here. If it's your first time listening or if you're coming back, I really appreciate it. So this is the fourth episode. I'm really super excited to share this interview with you all. I'm talking to a good friend and just an amazing all-around human, Cassie Trainer. And so Cassie is a bar manager, a mixologist, she's a vintage seller, and she's just truly a fashion icon in the Cleveland community, and also just an all-around amazing creative person. She started curating her personal vintage collection back in the early 2000s. You can currently find her stuff at Flower Child, which is a vintage store here in Cleveland. So I wanted to talk to her for a lot of reasons because she just really has one of the coolest and most unapologetically feminine style, and her philosophy behind dressing just really inspires me, and I feel like inspires anyone she talks to about just dressing how you feel and just dressing like your best self. Basically, the way I would describe it, she's just a mixologist in every sense of the word. Like whether it comes to her creating interesting pop culture themed menus at her bartending job at Mayhall's, which is a local bar here in Cleveland, or whether it's through putting together like serotonin filled outfits every day. And I do mean every day. And yeah, so we had such a fun conversation. We talked about everything from Valentine's Day outfits to how to dress flirty, first date outfits, and some of her style inspirations growing up, as well as her obsession with the movie Titanic. So I really hope you enjoy this episode, and thanks for listening. So here we go. So hi, Cassie.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being here for this is the fourth episode of the Changing Room podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. This is probably the third time I'm kind of interviewing you, but I'm hoping this time we can really talk even more about all things fashion and vintage. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. It's probably my favorite thing to talk about. So happy to be here.
My favorite thing to hear. Music to my ears. So first question I ask all my guests is, what are you wearing right now? And does it have a story? Like each piece, does it have a story? And just tell me it.
Gotcha. So I am wearing a fully vintage outfit, which is obviously, as you know, my favorite thing. I usually like to start getting dressed by picking like one specific item I'm excited about, and then building, whether it's like a pair of earrings or a bodysuit. In this case, it was this bodysuit, and then building around it. And it's kind of like an adventure for me to get dressed. So I'm wearing a vintage bodysuit from the 90s that I bought at Flower Child, where I sell vintage. And so every time I work, it's kind of like a shopping experience as well.
No, that's amazing.
And then over top of it, I'm wearing a 70s vintage dress, like kind of like a jacket that comes with a maxi dress. In the 70s, there were tons of these maxi dresses that were like spaghetti strap, but they came with like tops that would go over them to make them a little bit more modest, or like, you know, if you were in like chilly weather or whatever. But to be honest, I don't like wearing them over the dresses because they hide how beautiful the dress is. So for a long time, I was just like, you know, putting them in storage or donating them. But then I realized that you can actually put them over, you can use them as a top in and of themselves. Or put them over other things to layer. But so that's that. And then I'm wearing a 90s rose skirt that I bought from Future No Future, which is one of my really good friends, and she always has the best stuff. And I found out later that the skirt was actually pre-owned by my friend Jackie Bond, who also really loves vintage.
I would seriously envision her wearing that.
Yes.
Oh my God, I love that.
And she had sold it to Future No Future, and then I found it and loved it and bought it. And so she saw a picture of me wearing it, and she was like, no way. It's kind of like the sisterhood of the traveling skirt in a way, being passed from like vintage fashion lover to vintage fashion lover.
I love that. And your earrings?
My earrings are by Haley from Cool World, and so I had to showcase her because I have so many of her earrings, and she just has such amazing unique pieces that she brings to life. And I just love supporting her. And then my belt is children's chain link toys, like from
No
kindergarten class. Do you remember playing with these? That
Yes.
you would like link them together.
That's literally what I thought of.
And I found them in a bag at a thrift store, and I just saw them sitting there, and I was like, what can I do with these?
Oh my God.
And so I've been making belt chains for my friends with
I love
them.
that so much.
And I've been making necklaces. I want to do like harnesses too.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. That is just so like playful, but also like you make it look so elegant. Like I like immediately like saw that belt, and I had some kind of nostalgic, unconscious, like kind of like I said about your perfume, like it smelled like candy. So I'm like, it's so crazy how different things kind of remind people of things immediately.
Nostalgia honestly like drives me.
Yes.
It drives me in my everyday life in every aspect. And
Yeah.
I think that it's a conversation starter. I use it in, my cocktails
Yes.
and my fashion and everything I do.
And speaking of your cocktails, so you are a bartender, and you've been bartending for quite a while. Could you remind me how?
I've been at Mayhall's for 8 years.
8 years. And I just love, like, I know when I first interviewed you, when I first kind of really started observing your style and kind of listening to your style philosophy, it really is like, your outfits are like truly like cocktails, like that combine just surprising ingredients that you just maybe wouldn't think of. And it's all about kind of bringing like an experience to life. And I don't know, I love how your outfits like match that.
Thank you.
And so what kind of like, I'm kind of jumping to a different question, but just how would you describe your style, which is a very hard question, I know, but you can take all the time you need. Like, how would you describe your style, and like what kind of is the philosophy that guides the way you get dressed every day? And you kind of touched on it here, like how it's an adventure, but tell me more.
So, nostalgia, like I said, is a huge part of my style inspiration. Describing my style is very hard, but I would probably, if I had to use words, I would probably say whimsical would be one of them. I kind of lean more towards feminine silhouettes, weird. I asked my boyfriend this the other day because I was really struggling with, like, how do I even describe my style? And he was like, I don't know, but all I know is every time you go home to get dressed, get changed, it takes you like 30 minutes and you're never just wearing like a sweater and jeans. Like, you're always wearing this whole like ensemble that no one else has ever like worn before or seen before. And I kind of laughed and was like, that's what I love. I love to put together things that are interesting and unique, not just to like other people, but also to me. Like, it's kind of like a little mini adventure or challenge every day, like putting together an outfit.
Yeah.
And it brings me so much joy to do that, and it can reflect like my mood.
Me too. I'm the same way. And it's funny because the first time I think I talked to you for when it was for the article for Cleveland Magazine, I think it was it was like either 2021 or 2020. I can't remember now, but it was like during the pandemic, kind of when we were still in it. And I think I maybe talked to you about a little bit how like the beginning of work from home like really killed my style a little bit. And I don't know, I kind of want to ask you a little bit about that as well. Kind of, when thinking about style, it's such an emotional thing for me, I feel like, because it's kind of how I like present myself to the world. So when I was finding myself only reaching for like the same 2 sweatpants or whatever, I just was not feeling like myself. And it made me ask, like, okay, then why am I getting dressed? Am I getting dressed just for other people? Or is there more to it? So what do you think about that, I guess?
So I felt the exact same way. Like, it was kind of, the pandemic, being in lockdown was depressing enough, but not being able to get dressed up was also extremely, like, it got to me. So I started doing photo shoots, and that was kind of when I really like amped up my online vintage presence and started selling on Depop. And at Mayhall's, being able to bartend, like being able to dress up and kind of share my outfits and my fashion with people every night that's one of the reasons I love my job so much. I'm able to like dress differently, dress for themes, and share that because I'm inspired by so many people. So I love when people like get to see my outfit and feel inspired as well. So I think a huge part of fashion is sharing with other people.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to dress to make yourself happy as well, and dress what makes you feel confident. But I think a huge part is sharing. It's art. Art is meant to be shared.
I love that. I love that you use the word share because it's such an obvious word, obviously. But I think sometimes when we think about the aspect of our style that is public, like when it's exposed to being viewed by other people, I think we sometimes think of it as like a bad thing. It's like, oh, well, I'm super worried about what this other person's going to think or what this other person's going to judge me by. But you're so right when you kind of view it as like an art form that you're like exchanging, you know? Or I like to think of it as really like a discussion. Like people's like outfits can be like in conversation with each other. I feel like I told you the story when I first interviewed you, but I will never forget. And this has happened almost every single time I've gone to a themed party at Mayhall's, where I go in the women's bathroom, and depending on the theme, depending on the night, I just fall into a conversation with a wonderful person in there about their outfit. And I remember there's been like emo nights, there's been other nights, where I just go in. There's been a couple times I remember where there was like some younger, like 20-year-olds, like, and they were, I just really liked their outfit, and they were so 90s. Like, I'm like, you look like so 90s right now. And they're like, oh my God, I love it. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And they like told me about these, like this bracelet they got from Depop and all this stuff. And that's just so exciting to me. So
truly, especially like younger generations, because I'm 35. When I was growing up, I feel like fashion was, you saw it in movies and TV and magazines, but that was kind of, it was limited to where you could be exposed to fashion. Now with the internet, with TikTok, Instagram, unlimited resources, a lot of younger generations, I feel like, are becoming much more creative and not just following like specific trends. Like, there used to be only like a few trends at a time. Now it's like there are thousands of trends happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And you really see that reflected in like young people's fashion, and just the, the popularity of vintage is so different from when I got into it. It 15 years ago.
It is. I think it's much more valued. I think in terms of, we could also talk about fashion as a kind of a signaling of who you are and kind of what kind of people you want to attract, I guess, but also like in terms of what community you want to be a part of. So I feel like a lot of younger people are maybe like becoming kind of a bit more anti-trend and more, I just want to be viewed as like having a unique style that's like that's vintage or secondhand. So you know what I mean? It's just kind of like more value to be like, I have this unique piece, not necessarily this piece is connected to this certain aesthetic, right? Which I think is amazing.
I was just talking about this the other day, how like historically you kind of associate fashion trends with a music style or with like, emo is, everyone can think of what they, when you think of emo music, you can imagine the type of person that would go to that show and what they'd be wearing. Hippies, like the counterculture of the 60s, listening to psychedelic music, like those kind of went hand in hand. Like new wave fashion with new wave music, grunge. But now I feel like I can look at somebody and not necessarily know what type of music they listen to, because everyone's just trying to be unique and just dress for the way that makes them happy. And that's what I've always loved so much about fashion, is like it can inspire the way you feel and the mood that you want to have that day, and can energize you and give you life. And that can look, infinite number of ways. It can be, it's not one specific look. It can be anything you want.
I love that. It's so funny. So Hannah also mentioned about how her personal style started with like when she was in like the punk scene as like a teen and stuff. And it's really true how music impacts that, and that's such a good way to put it. Like, you can't really tell what kind of music. there's still like there will be stereotypes always, and memes about like, oh, this guy looks like he listens to techno or something, but it's like not as you're right, it's not as obvious anymore, and that's more interesting, because again, going back to like my cocktail analogy or whatever, like everyone's just like their own fun cocktail, and I'm sure like as a bartender you probably see like tons of cool outfits. And could you tell me maybe, do you have any like favorites you've ever seen, or kind of like, what's that like, kind of just seeing people get dressed for like a night out, you know, kind of?
Lately, some of the like the Harry Styles dance parties have been bringing out some really amazing outfits.
I love it.
On New Year's, we had that MTV VMAs party, and that was really fun to see people like especially trying to look like specific celebrities from the 90s. Like I mentioned earlier, Gwen Stefani, that iconic look where she had like the face gems and the blue hair. Somebody recreated that perfectly. But that's another reason why I love my job so much, is getting to see everyone dress up for these different events and dressing up myself.
I love that. And I remember one of the things I will never forget that you told me about working at the bar is how, at least at the particular one you work at, is like you could look in one, I think you literally said like you could look in one corner and there's like, you know, someone from an older generation dressed in a certain way, and then you could look in the other corner and you see like a group of girls dressed in another aesthetic. And that's so cool how it's cool to have a place that kind of brings such a, you know, mixture, you know, of different things. So you don't know what to expect, but in a good way.
Absolutely. And then everybody comes together in the bar and interacts. I mean, and it's definitely never boring at work.
And we kind of touched on this like off camera, whatever. But again, I think there's just been a common theme of me wanting to talk to specifically Clevelanders like about the idea of like gathering places and how it connects with fashion, right? Because it's like, where do we go to get dressed up? Because it's obviously like to go out, you know. And I think it's so exciting to see more places in town here have themed parties, things that kind of like activate people's creativity a little bit. But yeah, how do you think like those kind of spaces connect with how people get dressed up or kind of peacock their looks?
So, kind of what we were saying earlier, you can dress up and go anywhere you want. And I've seen like a lot of people talking about like, you know, getting like they have to be the most dressed up person at the thrift store or at the grocery store or whatever. And I've always kind of felt that way. You know, I dress up wherever I go because it makes me happy. But there are like specific places I think that people go to share their fashion, like, and they know other people will be dressed up. I do think Mayhall's is one of those places
where you feel safe almost.
And excited to, you know, showcase your personal style. We do kind of like typically think of like nightlife as a place to do that.
Which is interesting.
Concerts, definitely.
So it's interesting.
But I wish, like you were saying, I wish that there were more themed events that something like the dance parties that I've done at Mayhall's with Haley of Cool World. Like we always tried to create parties that we would want to go to. And an excuse to dress up, an excuse to dress, you know, like you're at Studio 54 or you're at a club in 1991. And just kind of creating the thing that you would want to dress for.
It would be amazing. I know I definitely want to talk to her at some point for that very reason, because the way she designs her own shop and the way she designs her or designed the Mayhall's room, it encourages you, like, no matter what reason you're there, it's kind of puts you in that like headspace. It's just so interesting how like the spaces we're in, like, obviously like impact how we get dressed up and like the confidence we may have. And I had another thought and now I forgot. But I was just gonna say, like, I feel like if I would tell someone maybe in New York or LA who maybe knows nothing about Cleveland, like, there are so many fashionable people here. I would probably get a lot of scoffs and laughs, like, no way, whatever, everyone lives in a cornfield. But it's like there really are. It's just the visibility isn't as, you know,
well, it's prominent. Not as overwhelming when you go somewhere like LA, you know, you
see it everywhere.
And that's almost, I mean, that can be exciting, but that's kind of like stimuli overload almost. In Cleveland, you have a chance to be, you know,
you have to like find
a star. You can,
yes,
you can be one of few that, like, although it's not really few anymore. It's like we were saying about a lot of younger people that are going out and seeing so much unique fashion and makeup. I mean, the makeup trends are and the hair trends are like out of this world. Like that's one thing that I've never expanded on, is doing like fun makeup.
Too. That's my goal. I want to like practice like more fun eyeshadow and stuff. But yeah, it just really excites me when I see people out and about with cool, like it was literally on New Year's Eve, I saw this girl, and it's funny, she wasn't really wearing like a themed outfit for the 2000s theme, but I just saw the bottom half of her outfit. She was wearing a long jean denim skirt, this beautiful like coin purse, like it must have been vintage, like purse, and these plaid patterned socks and red Mary Janes. And I will never forget that. I took like a quick photo. I was like with my friend Nicole, and I'm like, okay, I need to take a photo of this. And it's just like, I don't know, just little like seeing little details like that out and about. I'm just like, I love this. And yeah, like talk about overstimulation in the best way. Like that party was like, oh my gosh, so many cool outfits.
I know,
Makes me so happy.
Amazing.
And even when you and Hannah did because I feel like Cleveland is such a flea market city, such a vintage market city. And I feel like, I think I said on my story in one way or another when I was at the last Mayhall's vintage market, I said on my story, like, this is Cleveland's fashion week, because everyone, like, not just the sellers, everyone who was just there and walking around, I'm like, where did you all come from? Like,
it's such a good point. That's another place to go to showcase fashion.
Yes. Yeah. When you go around and shop, and it's like, it was like this magnet that like brought together all these stylish people. And I'm like, you all look so good right now. And like, you know, just these layered, beautiful outfits, like interesting pieces. So yeah, in short, I'm just like really excited about that.
Yeah. Hopefully we're going to have another market probably like early March.
Hey, so excited. So totally skip past this question, but I know I asked you at some point before, but what are some of your biggest style icons or inspirations, like specific people?
So, well, for inspirations, like I was thinking about this earlier, like my biggest inspiration is honestly just like what I find out in the world. Because when I really think about like how my style started, even like as a young kid, going thrifting, and just like it's always an adventure what you're going to find. So you don't know what you're going to find when you leave your house, but when you get there, you might see something you never even could have imagined before. You didn't know it existed until you saw it at the thrift store. Yeah. And like, I mean, these chain link pieces that I just saw sitting there, and I was like, how can I turn that into an outfit? So I think my biggest inspirations are just like things that I find that have been pre-owned. Yeah. But as far as like actual like things, movies growing up, like a lot of 90s movies really early inspired me, like you know, the fashion in like Jawbreaker and 10 Things I Hate About You. And then more like futuristic type movies like The Fifth Element. I really lean towards like costumes and using elements of like what you would consider a costume in everyday wear. Thierry Mugler, who you know, has really futuristic style on the runway. Barbarella.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I love also pinup photography. Like ever since I was a young kid, like I've just been enamored with looking at vintage pinups. Yeah. I think that's also where I get a lot of my inspiration for the way pieces fit me and like what I gravitate more towards. You know, fitted around the waist and accentuating like your hips and things like that. I love Bunny Yeager. She was like an early pinup photographer. And then Betty Page was one of her like most popular subjects, and she's a huge inspiration of mine. Clarissa from Clarissa Explains It All. When I was a kid, she always had like unique layered outfits, so that was early for me.
I love that. And yet Jawbreakers, I haven't seen it, but I have not seen it.
Oh my gosh, just for the fashion alone, you need to see it.
I was looking at just like screen caps, or I just watched like a YouTube review of like the costuming, and it's so fun. I literally only watched Heather's for the first time like last year. Like Evan and I watched it, and also such fun clothes, like put together so well. But yeah, it's crazy how movies can like impact.
Yes, I've always just been a huge fan of cinema and like, you know, getting lost in a movie. And so I think when I was a kid, like that was a huge inspiration for fashion for me. another thing that's worth just watching for the fashion is the show 90210.
Oh, I've never seen that either. But really,
so good. Yeah. If you like 90s fashion, it's amazing.
I adore 90s
And then I
fashion.
brought this book to show you. You might also have seen it before, but this is also a really huge inspiration to me when I was a kid. Fruits Japanese street fashion.
Oh my God, yes.
I used to go to Borders, which was in the Crocker Park area before it turned into Crocker Park.
I'm gonna try and show the camera.
And flip through this book before I could like actually afford to buy it. And then I remember the day I was finally like, I had enough money to buy it, and I was so excited.
This is like insanely like this is so popular right now too. Like I feel like a lot of like younger people are like kind of discovering this, but these outfits are just like some of the best. Like I've mainly seen them like through Pinterest and stuff. Like, oh my gosh, look at this, like the sweater vest and his like, I just love all of that. Oh my gosh. Oh my God, the kids. So cute. No, these are, oh my gosh, this is just like some of the most iconic street style.
Yeah,
is from
I
Fruits.
love it.
I love that. That's amazing. And I guess, what else was I going to ask? Well, I guess, you sell vintage, and you sell at, I'd say probably one of the biggest vintage stores that I consider to be like in Cleveland. Like, how did that get started, and how, did it just kind of naturally progress out of loving thrifting, and kind of, what's that process like, kind of curating your own collection, I guess?
When I was very young, well, my whole life, my mom collected antiques, and she loved it so much. She specifically collected antique beaded bags, Victorian beaded bags.
Wow.
And in the 90s, there was a huge market for that. So she was able to buy and resell. And so we grew up going to antique shows, and just the thrill of going to an antique show, getting there right when it would open, and my mom would run through the aisles searching for these bags. And it was very competitive. So I kind of got an early peek into what that looked like, because now I do that with clothing at estate sales. And she loved it so much that she eventually started her own antique magazine, which I also brought. This is like her 90s antique magazine. That's me on the cover.
No way.
With my friends, yeah.
What? That is the most I never knew that.
She was really into Victorian jewelry.
Wait, is that you?
And fashion. Yeah,
that's me. That's you. Yep. Okay, I could kind of tell from the bangs. So wait, she just started this? Is it still like, does it still come out? Or?
She did it for a few years.
Wow.
But yeah, she published it out of our basement.
That's
pretty badass.
Oh my God. Wait, it was called Ladies Gallery, Fashion Culture Antiques. Wait, I just want to read, I'm a magazine nerd. Surprises about the white lingerie dress. The golden age of carriages, practical, smart, and in-style camping classics for the women outdoors, 1800s and 1920s. There's like definitely so many people that would still read the heck out of this. How many issues did she release?
I'm not actually sure, but it was for a few years, so I'm sure at least 30.
That's incredible. Oh my God, I cannot get over that. Yeah. Bay Village.
I know, I wish she would do it. She'd start it again.
And these bags.
Yeah, that's her. Wow. Her bags.
I love when I see
those ones.
like,
I think are reproductions.
Yeah,
But she started me going to antique shows and then thrift stores, and I specifically remember going to Unique when it used to exist.
Yes.
I don't know if you ever went to a Unique, but there was one on Fulton, and it was like my treasure trove. It was the first place I drove to when I got my license and my car.
Wow.
That was like the first place I drove to alone, was to go to this Unique, and I found so many amazing things there. And I loved thrifting so much and treasure hunting, and started selling a little bit on eBay. And then when I graduated college, I saw they were looking for vendors at Flower Child, and I had grown up going there and loving it, and it was kind of like a this is my dream situation, and they accepted me, and I've been there ever since 2009.
And what would you say there's like a specific era that you curate more, or you kind of jump around?
Oh my gosh, I jump around. Yeah, honestly, all of them. We do more. We don't have a lot of like the 1920s through the 1940s because it's harder to find. It's more fragile, and smaller sizes a lot of times. It's not as wearable. So what we're selling most of right now is definitely 80s, 90s, and even some Y2K, which a lot of our dealers don't even consider. You know, they're like, that's not vintage. Some of our dealers who have been in the vintage business a long time are like, you know, shocked that is what's selling. But I mean, that just goes to show just the fluidity of fashion. Like, it's just constantly changing. And when I was in high school, I never thought that when I was 35 that, you know, low-rise jeans would be coming back in style, but here we are.
That's how I feel about, you know, which is crazy that it's already happening because of how sped up the trend cycle has become, but that's how I feel about kind of now the slow romanticization of like 2010s fashion when I was like in high school, and I'm just like, there is no way that this is gonna be like what the 80s is to me. 2010s is gonna be that
but it will
too. But it will.
Will, yeah.
And you don't think of it in the moment, and I feel like that's definitely relevant with like music and other things too. But with fashion, it's just like when you're in it, like you have such a certain in the present view of it, like whether you like it or don't like it, that like my mom, I know when like wide leg jeans started coming back, she was just like, I can't believe that's out or that's in again, because it was really in at a certain point, like 70s, 80s, but then it became very much out. Like, no, so last year, don't wear that, don't wear those. And now it's coming back, and she's just like, she was just like shocked. Yeah, so it's crazy how we all go through this kind of fashion whiplash a little bit as we grow up. Like, what? And when did you start selling?
At Flower Child was 2009, so 13 or 14 years ago. Oh my gosh. But I started selling on eBay probably in like 2005.
Oh, okay.
Like very early eBay.
That's crazy. And I forgot what I was going to, there's a follow-up question off of that I forgot. I guess you kind of said already, like kind of what was vintage back then changed based on now. Yeah, that's just kind of, you kind of answered that already.
Yeah, and like all eras of fashion, like all eras of thrifting. Like that's why I love thrift stores, is because you can find like literally every decade of, well, maybe not every decade. It's like I said, the 20s.
Yeah, it is
anything earlier than 1940, even the 1950s now is so hard to find.
It is. And I think my favorites would have to be, like, I really kind of thought about this in the last couple years as I was like, and I don't want to put myself in a box because of course, like, I even like certain Y2K things, but I think I really just like the 60s and the 90s. Like, I think the 60s have just like such cool silhouettes. Like, I'm not really like a mini skirt girl, but like I love just skirts in general, and I'm kind of like trying to lean more into mini skirts, but I loved like the fun tights and but then even like the 30s, because like was it the 30s and 40s where like so many women were wearing like pants, like high-waisted, like really chic like trousers, because I would associate with that. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, especially like around the World War, pants became really popular for women.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
But yeah, the 90s, like as cliche as it is right now to say, are one of my favorite decades for fashion. And then the 60s and 70s are huge for me too. The 60s was my first love of vintage fashion. I used to like want to dress just like Pamela Morrison, Jim Morrison's wife, and Pamela Des Barres, who was like a famous groupie. And you know, I was really inspired by like Edie Sedgwick and Twiggy and all that.
Oh yeah.
But I also love like pinups of the 50s, like Brigitte Bardot and
and like
Marilyn Monroe is amazing.
I adore that.
Grace Kelly.
Yeah. And so since the plan is at least for this to go live in February, I want to talk to you kind of about your thoughts on like just I guess what I would call it is like flirty dressing, as well as like date night and first date dressing, which could be separate things, right? And I guess I talk a lot on my like newsletter and on the podcast here kind of, and we even touched on it today, kind of about how your clothing can attract people. And it's just like you could really quite literally adapt that to when you're trying to, you know, find like, you know, someone out and about. So like And I just think that's so interesting. And, you know, I had some friends ask me, like, what do you wear for, like, a first date outfit? And why is it so hard? And I've been in a relationship for, 7 years, but that first date stress is definitely very real. I remember that kind of, like, I actually remember, I guess I'll start with, like, a story of, like, I was definitely nervous with Evan, like, what to wear, because I remember it was for a photo shoot, so he was going to take photos, and I'm like, okay, so this needs to, like, fit so many things, and it needs to be, like, cute.
Wait, that was your first date?
Yeah. And it was kind of, like, accidentally, like, because then afterwards we, like, went to dinner at the Cheesecake Factory, and we're like, this is a date? But, like, we knew, you know, because sometimes there's that, like, nebulous, like, you don't know what it is, but you still want to, you know, dress a certain way. And then my ex before him, I remember I literally, like, started the day hanging out. I was like 18, 19. And, like, I started the day hanging out with my friend, Grace. We went and got coffee. And I was like, I'm meeting this guy for a first date today. I'm really nervous. So we went to Avalon Exchange. I bought a new dress and changed into it to go, because I was so freaking out about it. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that. But, like, kind of what are your thoughts on, like, first date outfits? Like, do you just kind of put your whole self out there, or, like, and how has that evolved, I guess? Because I know you're also in a relationship, but
I think you should definitely put your full self out there. And I think, I think feeling like flirty and is all about confidence. And so whatever makes you feel the most confident. So if that's putting on, like, a sexy dress, then yes, definitely wear that on a first date. Or if it's wearing, you know, jeans and your favorite t-shirt, then wear that. Like, I feel like wearing something that makes you feel most like yourself and confident is the most important. I'm lucky to be dating someone who loves fashion, and I kind of knew that when we were going on our first date. So I definitely just, like, felt super confident in wearing, like, everything that, you know, something that I love and something unique. And also, it doesn't hurt to, and this is just maybe not for everybody, but for me, like, wearing cute underwear underneath, even if, like, you're not planning on sharing that after a first date, like, maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but it makes me just feel more confident.
Yeah.
And
I love that. And you do curate a lot of, like, vintage lingerie too.
That's, like, one of my weaknesses is vintage lingerie. It goes, like, with my love of pinups and vintage swimsuits, vintage lingerie. I love it so much.
That is a good tip, though, because it's almost like a little secret with yourself, like what you're wearing underneath. Like, maybe the person you're on the date with doesn't need to know, but yeah, it's just
but you know it's there.
Yeah.
And you know you look good.
I love that.
And if you're stressed and you're freaking out, you can also go back in your camera roll and just see, like, remember a day that you were really like feeling yourself, really feeling your outfit.
Yeah.
Maybe you were on vacation or you know, at a dance party, and you're like, I really felt super confident. I got a lot of compliments on this outfit. And then you can go back and see what you were wearing in the past, and that can help you out of a style crisis.
That is a fantastic piece of advice, because I think when we're putting together, you know, especially when you're in those first date phase, like early dates, you really, I think we're kind of focused on, like, am I gonna, you know, give off the right impression to this. We're always focused on what the other person is gonna think, you know, but that's such a good way to flip it. It's like, no, like, look back. When did you feel like you liked yourself the most? Yeah. You know, from your photos or your memories, and just recreate that, maybe, like, tune it a little bit. And I mean, you know, I definitely feel like when you're kind of in those early phases, it's kind of like you're throwing yourself to the wolves a little bit, and it's like a little bit of risk involved. But I was thinking about just kind of the word flirty in general, because do you know the designer Blue Marine? Yeah, and so their collection from, I'm going to say the wrong year, but it was 2000s, I think. They had this beautiful collection that reminded me actually of you a lot. So that's why I partially also want to talk about this, because, like, it was, I wish I could pull it up. Maybe I can. I should have prepared. I'm so unprepared. But basically every person looked like they were just wearing little, like, baby doll type, like, lingerie dresses, but they were very cute, very like the perfect mix of like you could wear this out but you can't, and the makeup and everything was just like a little bit disheveled. It looked a little bit like
bedhead.
Yes, and it was just so cute. And then their cheeks were so pink,
rosy
cheeks, and which I feel like blush, like I don't know a lot about beauty or makeup trends, but I feel like blush has made like a comeback in the last couple of years. Like everyone's super into blush, whereas I feel like when I was in college and stuff, it was all about
bronzer
okay, and contour.
Yeah, same.
Now it's all about the rosy cheeks, which I think is also flirty. So I don't know. I thought that aesthetic just kind of inspired me, kind of like, I guess for women and just like female presenting people or whatever, like, you know, just bring out your femininity. Don't be afraid to show it. And I just feel like your style is so like unapologetically feminine, if in the best
It definitely
way.
is. And that's just like, that's what makes me happy.
Yeah.
And, you know, I like to sometimes be like, for me, like changing up my style a little bit, like wearing like menswear or like trousers. I'm starting to experiment more with, and then combining it with more feminine pieces too, just so I still like feel like comfortable. But I love seeing the range of like gender in fashion. Like you see like all of it now.
Absolutely. Well, and I think items that we maybe at first, you know, are coded as like masculine or feminine can absolutely be made to look not the opposite, but you know what I mean, like feminine or masculine or whatever. Like skirts, I've fallen in love with long skirts in the last 2 years. Like that, they have replaced my jeans almost completely, and it's how I feel, just feminine, but also kind of match with that like masculine style that I like too. And I feel like you're seeing more skirts and long skirts being worn like by men, and just kind of in a more like androgynous way. And I'm like, wait, skirts can look masculine too, which is like a crazy thing to say, but it absolutely can, depending on how you style it, depending on like the attitude of the person wearing it.
I mean, kilts have been in Scottish culture 100%. For hundreds of years.
So I don't know, I love that we're seeing more and more on that. I know, just at least from my like TikTok feed, which, you know, gives, you know, maybe is whatever, but I love that. But let me see and try and find if I can just show you this collection. Oh, I guess I don't have it saved.
I'm always trying to find a way to wear like a lingerie dress or piece like out. I'm like, how can I layer this so that it's you know, appropriate for wearing out and about, because they're just so many vintage lingerie pieces are so beautiful. And like, sure, you may be able to like share those with your partner, or even just like, I mean, I love just like wearing them around my house sometimes just to feel good. But I feel like they're also meant to be shared. So finding a wearable way for vintage lingerie is like always it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's fun.
I love that though, because, well, and I think like, I know, I feel like slip skirts, like silky, like longer slips, and even shorter ones, slip skirts have been like, I've seen them styled in so many ways in the recent years, you know, and it's interesting actually. I feel like going back to, I guess, work from home style, like, you know, I think we've seen a lot of outfits that blend like loungewear, like sweatpants and comfier pants, but I think also like, I know there was like, maybe it was the summer of 2021 where it was like, whenever it was really hot in the summer, on the bottom I was just wearing like these silky slip skirts and then just like an oversized t-shirt, and I'm like, oh, this feels cool. So it's interesting how in that way working from home can also like bring out a new,
almost inspire you
instead of doing the opposite. So I try to remember that when I feel down about sometimes just being in my office every day.
I feel like being in lockdown also did it influenced my fashion in a way that I lean a little bit more towards cozy now. I used to not really wear much oversized clothing. But lately I've been wearing, it's over there, that oversized red corduroy LL Bean shirt, just like to feel like warm and comfortable. Still don't really wear sweatpants out. My boyfriend actually begged me one time to wear sweatpants out to a restaurant. Because he's like, just wear something. He's like, yeah, just dress casual, wear sweatpants. And then I showed up wearing a pair of like vintage Champion sweatpants that are like super fitted and like a cute little like cropped vintage t-shirt. And he's like, this is not what I meant.
I love that though. He's like, you can just, but I mean, if it makes you happy. I know growing up, my mom and I always joke around how, I grew up in Lithuania. I lived there for about 7 years, and like the style in Europe and like the expectations are so different. Like there, it's kind of like if you leave the house with sweatpants, you will get some weird looks. Maybe not as much now, but when I was growing up there in like the 2000s, like everybody was expected like to go out and like dress to the nines, which can become a bit much if that's just not how you naturally feel, but also vice versa. If you're in a place where like most people are wearing like casual sweatpants, like, you maybe feel like you have to think twice sometimes about, but I know you don't, about wearing, and that's why I always do think of you whenever I'm like, I want to wear something a little more fun, and like even today when I like added this little like scarf, and like I just, it's still kind of me and it's muted. I'm wearing my like leopard print cowboy boots from Savon. Yeah.
I love the mixing of patterns.
Yeah.
And, just something a little unexpected.
Yes. I think that's been one of my style philosophies that I've developed. I'm like, I always want to just have a surprise of some sort. Yes. And I do like black. I feel very safe in darker colors, but I'm trying to like branch out too. So I love it. But no, you gave some really good advice there about like first date outfits, because I think, yeah, you're right. It's all about like just fine tuning who you already are, and just kind of like not changing it, of course, because then, then what's the point? You're you're putting on a costume for a person, and then, it doesn't, it's not really going to serve the purpose you want it to. And then I just want to talk a little bit about like in our final minutes here, because we're already running out of time almost, but what are a little bit about like just your menu creation process. So you truly make some of the most fun like cocktail themes that I've ever seen. Thank you. Like, and tasted, like truly. I think my favorite, obviously, from like your Cyber Girl menu, the hot girl drink, or what was it like? That's hot.
That's hot.
Yeah, that's hot.
Like sherbet.
Yes, inspired by Paris Hilton. And you really just know how to infuse like an experience, a pop culture moment, like into a drink, and it makes it so fun. As someone who just really doesn't drink that much, like I like making like drinking and going out just like as special as possible. And it helps that you're like right up the street from me. But what's kind of like your process like a little bit for creating these themes and just kind of, making these menus?
Well, as you said before, like it's an experience. And so I kind of want to create an experience for people, because when I go out, I want to have, something different or unique or something to talk about with whoever I'm with. And I'm also driven by nostalgia. So I oftentimes will just like think back to things that have made me happy in pop culture or in a movie or a TV show, and think of something to reference first. Yeah. So like with the Y2K menu, I was thinking about like one drink I called A/S/L, age, sex, location. Yeah. Like just something, sometimes like the name doesn't really have much to do with the ingredients in the drink. It's more just like a, something to spark nostalgia. Yeah. But it's even more fun when I can incorporate the theme with the ingredients of the drink. On this menu, I have one called Oh True Apothecary, and it's a Romeo and Juliet cocktail, and it's actually kind of fits in with Valentine's Day. I saw these heart-shaped potion bottles at Michael's craft store, and I was like, my first thought when I saw them sitting on the shelf was, I could put a drink in that. So sometimes the inspiration comes from things I see out in the wild. Yeah. And then my second thought was, that reminds me of the heart from Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. like the flaming heart
Yes.
motif. So then I was like, oh, I'm going to do Romeo and Juliet cocktail. I'm going to fill this jar full of it's a gin-based drink. You would probably love it if you haven't tried it yet. And I'm going to have the customer be able to pour it into their glass. So not only is it, a fun themed drink, but now the customer gets kind of a part in making their cocktail.
Yeah.
And inside the drink, there's a piece of cotton candy that's skewered. So when you pour the drink over the cotton candy, it slowly melts away.
So it's just all, and I always say kind of my sign is a Taurus, and like one like stereotype about a Taurus is just we love like all the senses being like ooh, and it's just like you really do that with each drink, like it's something pretty to look at, it's a pretty name, it's a it's a conversation starter through the name, it's like just these textures you're seeing, and it just makes it so much more special, and I love it so much.
Thank you.
Wait, the last thing I want to actually talk about, I am so sad that I could not go to your Titanic party.
Titaniversary.
And since like it is still the Titaniversary this year, right?
Well, it was technically last year. It was 2022.
Okay.
It was December 17th, 2022.
Well, regardless.
But they're actually re-releasing Titanic around Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's what I saw.
So I think that they probably made a conscious decision to do it around Valentine's Day, even though the technical 25th anniversary was last month. But I've always loved that movie so much. I saw it in theaters, and
it was just like kind of
it was life-changing.
Yes. In your life.
My friend and I used to watch it every New Year's Eve. We would miss the ball dropping. Like we would miss midnight because it would be during the sinking scene, and we'd be like glued to our seats, like watching Leo and Rose trying to survive. Yeah. So 5 years ago, my friend and I had the 20th anniversary, and we called it Titaniversary. And everyone was saying like, oh, it looks like it says tit anniversary. And we were like, yeah, we know, because it was everyone's, anniversary of seeing their first on-screen boob, which was, you're probably too young to remember, but like when that happened, it was such a big deal. No one knew it was going to happen. Everyone went with their families to see Titanic in the theater. And this was in 97. So it was before like internet culture was big, and nobody knew it was going to happen. And there were a lot of gasps in the theater.
Well, I think I probably did have seen the uncensored version maybe once, but because we had an old
They might have played it on
VHS.
TV like with a censored version, but
because wherever it was streaming recently when I watched it, it was definitely censored. But we have like the old VHS, and that's definitely uncensored. But that's crazy. I never thought about how that blew everyone's mind.
It really
but
did.
that's a perfect
It really
name.
did. I know. So it's a perfect name. But when we had it 5 years ago, nobody came. But we created this trivia. We created scene reenactments. I had themed drinks. We had the couch set up for people to pose on with the heart of the ocean.
Yeah.
Like we went all out because my friend and I love this movie so much, and nobody came because that was a different era of Mayhalls, and it we were just promoting it on Instagram, and like nobody ended up coming out. But this year, we did it again, promoted it properly, and we had a really good turnout.
Yay.
Everyone got so into it. We projected the movie on the wall.
I just love any kind of themes like that focus on a specific thing. This is still like an idea in the process for me, but like my favorite rom-com of all time is My Best Friend's Wedding with
I love that movie.
Julia Roberts. It is like just to me the perfect rom-com.
When they all sing at the dinner table.
The
moment is so good.
It's funny, it's awkward, it's like it's such an unconventional story about love, because it kind of like, it's not the happy ending you expect, and I don't know, I love it so much. And it's about friendship, and I just love stories about friendship, but I want to just have a party just like around that.
Yes.
And we watch the movie.
That's one of my favorite themes, is to just do like a movie theme.
Yeah. Just
we did a
focus on
Matrix night at Mayhalls once. I really want to do a Brendan Fraser fest. Like I want to do like a weekend of like different Brendan Fraser movies every night.
No, you're a huge fan of Jurassic Park too.
Yeah, during the early pandemic, we did a Jurassic Park themed party at Little Rose Tavern, and I also did a Buffy the Vampire Slayer one. It was like a cocktail pop up, and we played the movie. We had like little prizes and stuff. I made merch. I bought a heat press so that I could make bootleg Jurassic Park t-shirts.
Yes, I've seen that. Oh my gosh. And then because you were then I think selling some of them at the market. Oh my god. And I just love that kind of just like earnest excitement about like different forms of media and how they can intersect. You can build a whole theme around it.
Yes.
It's funny you mentioned Baz Luhrmann at one point. I think just some kind of, I have like a whole Pinterest like secret board with like some theme ideas I have just like for birthdays or anything.
Is Moulin Rouge one of them?
Not just Moulin Rouge, just Baz Luhrmann ball. So a combination of different movies.
Yes. So Haley did that for New Year's Eve. It was like 2017 or 2018.
Maybe I unconsciously thought of the name from her because I definitely remembered something like that happening. Yeah.
And she combined like all of the Baz Luhrmann movies into that one theme, and it was such a cool party.
Do you remember if she included Strictly Ballroom? Because
I don't remember.
I feel like no one ever remembers that movie, but my dad showed it to me.
Knowing her, she probably did.
It's like it was set in Australia, and it was like about ballroom dancing and about this guy who was it was kind of like Footloose a little bit, but like Australian. It was kind of like Dirty Dancing but Australian, and the costuming that was amazing.
I need to watch that. I've never seen it.
Oh, you should. It's so campy. I mean, it's Baz Luhrmann, and it's like very campy, and I don't know. It's one of those movies that I want to like catalog all the movies that I think have the best like, I guess I would call it like the final dress scene, like the big reveal, like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. She has like the yellow dress, or in Strictly Ballroom, the girl, the love interest, whatever, she has a custom beautiful like red dress made that's like flamenco inspired, and it's like the final scene and she's there. Or there's so many others that I can think of, but I feel like I love how it leaves an impact on you. Like,
yeah, that's such a good idea.
Yeah, so maybe that could be a theme too. Everybody dresses as their own like final dress favorite.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. No, but yeah, themes is something we can talk about too.
I love themes. I love a good theme.
Last year, I did I just did an 80s. It was a little more vague, but it was just basically like 80s opulence and excellence for my birthday. Because I couldn't decide what I wanted to do exactly, so I just went off of the music. I was like, what is the music that I just want to dance to and I could just dance to forever? And it's for me, it's 80s every time. And now we're kind of maybe thinking like at some point some kind of 90s house techno night, because Evan's really now getting into that kind of music. So yeah, I love themes. After the pandemic, I'm just like, I need everything to be themed now, because I just want it to be a whole experience, or I just don't.
And it taps into that part of that nostalgic part of your brain that just like makes you feel good.
Yeah. And it just, God, we need more of that.
And it's an opportunity to be campy and to get like just really nerd out about one specific movie, like doing the Titaniversary, like just delving deep into Titanic trivia and like learning about all the weird stuff that went on set.
Yes. Was that
because James Cameron is psychotic.
Oh my God, yes. And this is unrelated, but like Mamma Mia, did you hear about that crazy story? Well, I guess it's the truth that it happened like in the first movie. They were all like wasted the whole time.
No, I didn't know that.
And I thought I heard something about the Titanic where didn't like they get food poisoning or something?
I think somebody it was like LSD or some sort of drug in the food.
Oh God.
And they all like were tripping and got sick.
Oh my God. But yeah, well now I want to go rewatch that because
it's coming out in the theaters around Valentine's Day.
No,
that's already what my date is going to be with my boyfriend.
Oh no, that's so cute. Oh no, that is really fitting for the theme. Oh, and the clothes in that movie are so cool too. I like her. really like her first outfit with like the hat. It's just like the classic.
Yes. Oh, fun story. My mom and her friend used to sell Victorian clothing, and they sold some of the hats to Titanic.
No way.
Set. Yes. My mom thinks she talked to James Cameron. I'm convinced that it was probably an intern or something. But
let her think.
But
that.
she was like, yeah, she was like emailing back and forth with James Cameron. But so in the opening scene, when the ship is leaving the harbor and everyone's like waving, that's when like some of like you see so many people in costume, and they've actually found all of these like Victorian hats.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, your mom is like the coolest person ever. I'm
yes, she
perplexed. I mean, I'm not surprised. Like, this is also, I see these kind of like little vanities everywhere now, like at thrift stores and stuff.
Mm-hmm, the little wicker vanities.
Oh, I just can't get over that. That is so cute. And how cool she's just like, I love Victorian antiques. I'm going to make a whole magazine about that. That is so inspiring. I cannot.
Yeah, it's her passion. She had a whole collection of Victorian and just like early 20th century jewelry, and that was also something that got me really into vintage, because I would go in her room and like look at her pieces and then like try one on in front of the mirror, and then I'd be like, Mom, can I wear this today? And she'd be like, yeah, you can just keep it. And then she kept giving me all these beautiful necklaces.
I just flipped onto like a heart one.
Yes.
I think it's very fitting.
I love Victorian jewelry.
Yeah. Oh, that's so stunning. No, yeah, like the lockets and stuff. Oh, gorgeous. Well, I guess we can wrap up with just, I know we talked about we talked about all kinds of things that you love, but I kind of like to ask every guest, what is something you're just loving lately? Like either, like maybe it's I don't know if I specified that it's something you recently either like discovered or found, like whether it's like an idea, like a fashion item, a brand, a book that you read recently, or an exhibit you went to, even a movie. It's kind of like very vague, but kind of just like what recently kind of just like is inspiring you, and it can be a couple things.
I don't know about anything like any specific, but just in general, something that's really been inspiring me is all of the people that are upcycling vintage items, tablecloths, quilts, aprons. Over the years, I've collected so many like vintage fabrics and aprons and all these things where I'm like, I want to turn these into a shirt someday, or I want to turn this into something else. And you're just seeing so much of that now. Yeah. And I absolutely love to see it.
No, I love it too. It's my friend Nikki. Yeah, she literally just made I think it was pants out of like a pillowcase or something, or a corset. I don't know. But I just thought that was so cool because, like, yeah, that's such a soft, comfy material. Why not recycle it and create it into like something you can wear?
And because a lot of like tablecloths or handkerchiefs, those are not things we really use in our day-to-day life anymore. Yeah. But it was so common, 50 years ago, that there's so much of that out there, and a lot of it ends up getting like thrown away or put in storage, and it's breathing it new life, which is one of the best parts about buying secondhand. I know there's this one brand, if I think of her, I'll do a little overlay, but she does like things out of tea towels, like either like she in beds, she makes these like beautiful blouses, and for like the bust or the corset, she just picks these beautiful tea towels that have like a beautiful I think
pattern.
I know who you're, at least one. I'm sure there's a few,
it starts with
multiple
an S,
people
the one I'm thinking of is something. I don't know. But
there's a local person they go by Frisk Me Good.
Okay.
Are you familiar?
I don't think so.
They're in Cleveland, but they make, she kind of became famous, I think, for doing corsets out of sneakers.
No way.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Wow.
But they also do jackets and track pants style type things out of like sleeping bags, and they shop at Flower Child, so they've bought sleeping bags from us, like novelty character like Disney sleeping bags, and then turn them into like puffer jackets. And
is it this person?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Wait, they're Cleveland based?
Yes.
No way. Wow.
And they've had lots of celebrities wear their items.
That's amazing.
I actually was just picking their brain when they were in Flower Child recently. I was like, would you like to sell at the next vintage market? And they seemed interested. So
I love that. Oh, I love that.
So
that is so
talented.
that just takes such a specific type of creativity to think, a shoe can be a shirt, a sleeping bag can be like, it's just amazing. That's why I love fashion too. Cause like, and my last guest, like Ashley Boyan, and she, like, it was so interesting to talk to her about like how she makes clothes and how she literally, we were just editing it and she said such a beautiful thing. She said, the fabric is my canvas. Like I start with that, and it just, I love that.
That is beautiful.
I am obsessed. Okay. Well, I think that's kind of all the time we have, but this was amazing.
Much.
I always love talking to you, picking your brain. I know next time we'll be chatting away, probably across the bar or something.
Probably still about fashion.
Yes, obviously. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks so much for just chatting, and
thank you.
Hope you have a great rest of this month and then Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I can't wait to see your flirty outfit.
Yes, thank you. I'm taking notes. And that's where we end. All right, in.
Woo.
Yeah, I was just like very cognizant of 6:30 because I know you have to be somewhere at 7. This is insane. Dude, what the hell? I didn't know. What? There's more. I want to like interview her.